Hi, and welcome to NicheCraft. My name is Kassi, and I am your host. So today we are going to be learning how to make the corner-to-corner blanket. And some people call this the C2C blanket. That just stands for corner-to-corner, just so you know. What you're going to be needing to know in order to make this stitch are very, very simple concepts. You're going to need to know how to chain. You're going to need to know how to double crochet. And you're going to need to know how to slip stitch, okay? So based on what you need to know, this is a very, very easy, maybe even a beginner stitch, okay? What makes it more intermediate, though, is simply that you have to think of crochet in a little bit different way than I would say the way that you might think if you've only worked back and forth, okay, in rows back and forth, or if you've only worked from the center out, or both, you know, when you're making your granny squares. Because when you make your granny squares, you work from the center and you just kind of gradually increase until you get to the square size that you want. And working back and forth is just another way of building up that fabric. And of course, there's working in the round as well, which is another way of building up this fabric. Well, this one is going to be done a little bit different. Before I show you a little bit more about how to do this stitch, I wanted to tell you that this particular blanket is one that I'm working on for my son. It's something that he requested me make a while ago, and so I am making it. And he wanted it to be made in this Super Saver ombre. This is the colorway True Blue. This particular blanket requires 5 skeins of this True Blue and Super Saver ombre. The stats on this is 482 yards or 440 meters. It's a 10-ounce ball, 283 grams. It is a 4-weight. Let's see here. Anything else? Of course, it's acrylic, and there is a thing with red heart, and I don't hold it against anybody, but a lot of people don't like working with a red heart because it's just not soft enough for them. Now, I added a tip very early on this channel about how to soften up red heart yarn, and it works with all yarn, but it's made working with red heart yarn very easy for me. And all you have to do is add liquid fabric softener when in the wash, when you're washing it, okay? The fabric sheets in the dryer, they don't work as well, and besides, you don't want to be using them anyway because that builds up a film around your dryer and it ends up not drying the clothes as efficiently when you use it all the time. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to make this by using this huge project and just, you know, continuing on here, but there is an advantage of having this worked out that can help you look at crochet in a little bit different way, and that's what I was talking about. So let's first kind of look at it that way. So the corner to corner blanket does exactly what it says it is. You start in the corner. Let me move this aside so you can actually see it. So you start in the corner right here, and you start with making 1 square, okay? And each time you increase, you increase another square, and you're working on it like this, okay? You're not working in it back and forth, okay? So you work on it from corner to the other corner, right? So yeah, you make 1 square, and then when you turn, you make 2 squares, and then you turn, you make 3 squares, and it just keeps going on and on until you reach as wide. Okay, so as wide, and of course this is going off the camera, but basically this isn't wide enough for me. This is definitely not wide enough for my son yet, although it's getting there. And when you get it as wide as you want, and when you get it as tall as you want, and again, it's going to go off the camera here, but this blanket is still not as tall as I want it to be for my son. So I'm just continuing to work on it, and he wants it to fit his oh goodness, he's got a twin size bed, I believe. It might be the one up from twin, but he's got a twin size bed, and he wants it to be a little bit bigger than his bed, so yeah. But what I wanted to show you is that here I am at the very end, okay, of the very last row I completed. And again, we do them in diagonals, okay? And I just wanted to show you what it looks like when you reach the end of your row. This is going to help when I begin the tutorial, okay? What happens is you do not make a turning chain. There is no need to make a turning chain. All you do is you turn your work, okay? And you'll notice that when you turn it and you hold it straight, there will be this sort of stair step looking, you know, there's going to be this kind of stair step. What you do is when you think about how to know which place to go into to slip stitch, you just slip stitch going up the stairs, okay? This might seem really weird and really like go on, start the tutorial, but this is important because if I had known this when I was first starting out, then I would have done it so much more quickly, okay? So this will help you figure out how to do it a lot more quickly. So what you do is you turn and then you chain, but you don't chain because you just turn. The chain forms the base of the next square you're going to make. So I'm turning and then I'm going to chain 6, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then what I'm going to do is each one of these squares is made up of 3 double crochets and a turning chain, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the 4th stitch from my hook, okay, which is right here. And you'll know because I can fit 1 double crochet there, another there, and another there. So there's 3 double crochets there. This is my turning right here. So I'm going into there and I'm doing the first double crochet. So I have that first double crochet and the turning. Now I'm going to make the final 2. All right, and now what I'm going to do in order to connect this that I just made to the rest of the blanket is that I'm going to slip stitch. And remember how I said you kind of go up the stairs when you're doing it? The first stair step is right here. So I'm going to slip stitch right here into this stair step right here, okay? So I've just joined that next square. I just added a square there, right? Then I'm going to chain 3. That counts as my turning chain, right? And then I double crochet 3 times into this loop that I just went into, okay? And again, you don't go into the stitches, you just crochet around that loop, okay? At least that's how I was taught to do it, and it's turning out great. Next, again, you just slip stitch into the next stair step, and then you chain 3 and you continue on and you just make the blanket that way. The only difference between going up the steps is that, and then making this first one, is that this time you chain 6, okay? And in each next one you only chain 3 after you slip stitch into the next, and that's how it is done. So every single one of these little blocks I made was going diagonally up the stairs, okay? So right now, the first thing we're going to be learning is how to increase. Now, my son's blanket has not reached the size that I want it to in order to decrease. So I am going to show you how to decrease using this practice yarn that I'm working with. Now, I made a hat for my daughter from this practice yarn. I could not find the string in the middle, and I did not want to create a big commotion, so I decided to just unwrap it from the outside. But what I'm using is Willow Burrow worsted weight. This is I got this from Hirschner's, but it was in a mystery box, okay? One that I did not open on the channel. I got it before I started the channel. But it is a Willow Burrow worsted weight in it's a 3.5 ounce, 100 gram, 197 yards, or 180 meters. and it is a 75% acrylic, 25% wool blend. It is a weight 4, and the color is Sky. So if you want to purchase this particular color for any project you want, I would say this yarn is very easy to work with, but it does have wool in it, so do keep that in mind. So here is how we do the corner to corner blanket, okay? And you guys are going to be so amazed at how easy this is. If you've never done this, you're going to be able to you're going to be able to just go make a whole blanket probably in like a week at the most, okay? Some of you guys will finish it in a few hours. So you make a slip knot and put that on your hook. I'm using a J hook with this particular yarn. Now I've noticed that the Super Saver Ombre works up in I like the stitch definition better when I use a bigger hook, so I'm using a K or a 6.5 millimeter hook here for this one. So you're going to want to either use the hook that you prefer because you know yourself real well, or use the hook that it suggests. And if I use the hook that this suggests, the Willow Yarns suggests that I use a size I hook, and that would be fine. I think that maybe this J hook might show the stitch definition a little bit better and might make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. Now before I start, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more so that you guys can see my work a little bit better. Okay. All right. So we start with a slip knot on our hook. Okay. I like big tails, so you're gonna have to forgive me for that. But with your working yarn, you've got to hold the yarn the way that you prefer in your non-dominant hand, and with the hook you just chain 6, just like I showed you before. Okay, this pattern is very easy to repeat. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so once you've chained 6, you can either think about this as crocheting in the 4th chain, okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, crochet in right there, or you can think about it like I want to make 3 double crochet stitches, so these are the 3 double crochet stitches where they'll go, okay, and just ignore the rest of it. Whichever way works for you, either do a double crochet in the 4th stitch from the hook, or double crochet in a place where you can do 3 of them, okay? So I'm going to double crochet 3 times here, and I've got that first cluster, or that first double crochet counts as this chain right here. Okay. And it's always the hardest to work in that foundation chain. It gets quicker as we go. Okay, so we have made this is, what's it called? The lodestone? I hope that's the right word. We've made our very first stitch, or our very first little cluster here, and this is our first, this is right in our corner. Okay, so now again, remember how I said there is no turning chain? Now you just turn your work. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing to add a new stitch. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, crochet into the 4th chain from your hook, or right there where I can see I have 1, 2, 3 double crochets that I can make, so I'm just going to double crochet in that. You're going to get the same result either way, but just know that that's how you do it. And the reason why we're going to make sure that there are 3 chains in our chain here at the very beginning is because this is going to actually be the stitch that you are going to slip into when you do the next row. So that's another reason why that's important. Okay, so I have that corner stitch, and so this is the first cluster I made. Here's the second square I made. Remember I said you're going to have to slip stitch and you're going to have to go up the stairs? Well, when there's only one, it's kind of hard to tell. Well, where are the stairs? It's going to be right here. We're going to slip stitch right here, and if you look at it here, and let me just hold it a little bit closer to the camera so you can see. That is going to be that turning chain. You're always going to slip stitch into that turning chain. So if that helps you, then think of it that way. Otherwise, think of it as you're going up the stairs. This is the first step. You've just made an extra one, and now you're going to go up the stairs by going to this first step. What you do every single time you connect them, you slip stitch, okay? Let me show you how to do that again. For those of you who haven't seen my beginner crochet tutorials, all you do is you have that loop on your hook, you put your crochet hook through that area that you're going to slip stitch into, which in this case is that chain. You pull a loop through, okay? But instead of starting to crochet with it, you just continue to pull it through that last loop that you had, okay? And that's called a slip stitch. And if you need any kind of help with any beginner stitches and stuff like that, go ahead and check out my playlist for beginners, because I do have that and it might help. Anyway, once you've slip stitched, you chain 3. All right? And then you crochet 3 double crochets into this stitch right here, right around that chain space, okay? So this was your first row, which had 1 square. This is your second row, which has 2 squares. Now we're going to turn our work because we're at the end. There are no more steps to go up. In turning our work, remember we do not chain. We don't need a turning chain to turn. What we will do is, now that we've got our third row that we're going to start, we're going to chain 6. This just starts that next square though. Okay, so for row 3 and all the other rows, I mean, it's going to do the same thing each time. You chain 6 because we're about to make that next block. And now we can see the stairs that we're going into. We're going to go up that one, then we're going to go up that one, right? So now we're going to double crochet in the 4th chain from our hook, or like I like to look at it as in, okay, I have three double crochets I need to make, so I'm going to put them in those 3. Just whichever one works best for your pattern recognition, go with it. Just want to make sure that people who think about this in all different ways have their little tricks that they use to conceive of this particular stitch. So we've made that next block. Okay, so we are on the 3rd row, so we're going to make 3 blocks. This is the first one. Okay, next we've got to be like, okay, where do we slip stitch into? Now, because you guys know to go up the stairs, you know that this right here is where you're going to slip stitch into. But here's why I told you that. Because when I first started out, I was like, do I slip stitch into this? Where do I slip stitch it? For some reason, it wasn't clear where I slip stitched into, and that was what prevented me from learning this more fast than I could have. So again, slip stitch right in there. You pull a loop through. You keep that loop on your hook from your last double crochet, okay? You put your hook into that very top level of that first stair step there. Pull through a loop. Pull that loop through that loop on your hook as well. Okay, so you've slip stitched, and then you chain 3, and then you double crochet 3 times into this loop right here. You're just going around the loop. You don't have to worry about the stitches. You're double crocheting into the loop. Okay, so since we are on these beginning rows, you know, it's easier to complete a row each time, because you don't have to make as many blocks to complete them. So we're on the third row. We've made 1 block, 2 blocks. We're going to slip stitch into this next stair step right here. Okay, I'm going to chain up 3. And then we're going to crochet, double crochet 3 more stitches around that chain 3 that we made. Okay, and now we are done with that third row. So as you can see, you start with the first, then you've got 2, now you've got 3. So this next one we'll do 4. Now I'm going to turn, because remember there's no turning chain. I'm going to turn my work, and now I see that stair very, very easily, okay? And I'm going to make the first square here by chaining 6. Okay, like I said before, I like to think of it as I've got 3 stitches I can work into, so I'm going to work into this one first. And I'm going to just continue to work into these. 1 double crochet into each one to make that first block. Okay, now I'm going to slip stitch into this next block here, chain 3, then I build the next block on top of that one by double crocheting 3 times. Now I'm going to slip into this next block right here, chain 3, and make another block by double crocheting 3 more times into this chain space from right here. So this is the 3rd block I've made, and I'm on my 4th row, so I know there's 1 more block to be made. So I slip stitch into this last block here, I chain 3, and then I double crochet 3 times into that very last block. Again, we're not working side to side, we're not making any corners, so all we do is turn our work like that. Okay, so our work is turned. We're going to turn it so we can see those stair steps. Okay, and now we're going to continue the repeat where you chain 6, you double crochet in the 4th from the hook, you double crochet 3 times, okay, and then you slip stitch into the next, you slip stitch into the next, and you just keep doing that. Once you slip stitch into it, you will chain 3, double crochet 3 times into the loop, and then you'll slip stitch into the next, double crochet 3 times into this chain space. Okay, once you're done with that, you'll be up to here, you'll slip stitch into this block, you'll chain 3, and then you'll double crochet 3 times into this one, and once you're done with that, you will slip stitch into the very last block, and you will chain 3 and double crochet 3 times into this. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks that we've made. Now I'm going to go ahead and go off camera and make 2 more rows, so that when I come back there will be 6 blocks. When I come back, I'll show you how to decrease, okay? Because once we get the piece to the size that we want it to be, and of course you can make anything out of this that you want. Most people make blankets out of this, but you can make a washcloth. You can make anything you want, okay? Anything that requires a square or rectangle, you can make it, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a couple more rows so that we can really practice that decrease, and I will show you how to decrease, and then I will show you how to bind off and weave in your ends, and then you can go make however big or however small of a blanket you want to make using this corner to corner stitch, which is super easy, even though it's an intermediate stitch. All right, I'll be right back. Hi, okay, so I have reached the 6th row. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. I know that I just did the 6th row, so I'm going to do exactly what I would have done otherwise, and I'm going to turn. Now, for when you decrease, you don't have to do this, but for those of you who are just starting out, this might help you. Sorry, reaching over to get my stitch markers. Now, I just wanted to let you know, I always have these stitch markers that look kind of like diaper pins or safety pins. You don't necessarily have to use stitch markers to look like this. You can always use a safety pin, a piece of yarn. Some people can even use a piece of yarn, that's fine. But it might help you use a stitch marker at this point. You don't have to, but I will show you why in just a minute. Let me go ahead and zoom out just a little bit so that you can see where I am here. Okay, so where I was is that I created the 6 steps, or the 6 squares needed for this very last row. Okay, before the decrease, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, of course, we turn. Normally what we do is we would take this and add another 6 to keep making it bigger, but I'm just going to pretend like this is where I want it, okay? This is as big as I want my square to be, or as big as I want my blanket to be, or, you know, however you want to conceive of it. I'm going to get these stitch markers just so I can show you how to use them to help direct your, you know, how you're going to do this next. Now, there are 2 ways. I mean, there are actually multiple ways of decreasing, but let's just focus on 2. One way is when you decrease, you make a square, okay? In the other way, you decrease and you end up with a rectangle, okay? So let's pretend like you want to make the rectangle. If you want to make the rectangle, what you're going to do is you've decided that this is how wide you want your blanket or your piece to be. And then you just continue to increase just on this side to make it higher. And then once this is as high as you want, then you can start decreasing on this side too. Let's pretend like you want to make this a square. If you want to make this a square, then all you have to do is not only decrease here, but you'll also decrease here. And I'll show you how to decrease here eventually as I am showing you how to decrease a rectangle. So if you want yours to be square, watch this part so you know how to decrease on this side. And then just go ahead and fast forward to the part where I start decreasing on the rectangle, okay? And it'll just be doing the same thing. It'll just be decreasing on both sides as you get, and that will create a square. For those of you, most people who are making blankets would prefer to have one side be, like the width of the blanket to be shorter than the length. So that's why I'm showing you both ways, okay? Just wanted to get that out of the way. So here is how you decrease. So I've decided that this side is where I want it to be, okay? So I don't want to chain more and make more boxes because this is how wide I want it. So what I'm going to do is instead of chaining, I'm going to go underneath this stitch, okay? Now there's different ways you can slip stitch. You know, for this purpose, I'm just going to go underneath each stitch and slip stitch through that, okay, to get up to the place where I want to go. All right, so I'm going underneath, pulling a loop through, and then slipping it into that. Okay, so there I've moved up one. I'm going to move up another one by slip stitching again. I'm going to move up another one by slip stitching again. And here I am in that next corner. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this stitch marker and I'm going to put it into this very first slip stitch I made just to remind myself that is where, that's where the width ends. That way, every time I come back to this, I'm not going to add any more, and I'll just be mindful of that. It'll just help me be mindful. I don't need it to help mark where my stitches are. It's just helping me to remember that this is my width and this is my length. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to do the regular pattern by chaining 3 and then double crocheting 3 times into this next box. All right, so we've got, we're starting to decrease it now. Again, we're gonna just go up those steps like we normally did by slip stitching in through here, and again crocheting 3, chaining 3, sorry, and then double crocheting 3 stitches into this loop right here. And then we're going to join these again the same way that we were doing before, and we keep going the pattern until we reach to this point up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep repeating the pattern until I reach up here, and then I will show you what to do in order to continue to increase this size but keep this side the same. All right, I'll see you there. Hi, so I'm making my last double crochet into this block right here. And now it's time to join. So I'm going to slip stitch here. Now, if I was going to do if I was going to make this square, I would do something differently here than what I'm doing now. And so if you want yours to be square, go ahead and fast forward to where the decrease on the top starts, okay? But since I'm showing you guys how to make the rectangle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain up 3, just like normal, and I'm going to make that extra rectangle on top. All right, so now that I have that, I turn and now I can continue to increase by creating 6 stitches here. Okay, and then I'm going to double crochet into the 4th one from the loop, from the 4th one from the hook here. And again, we've got the width is fine, we're just increasing the length. Now I'm going to slip stitch into this. Okay, and do the same pattern repeat by chaining 3 and going up the stairs, as I like to say. And when I end here, because I'm decreasing, I'm gonna do something different than what I've been doing, okay? So I am going to continue to do the pattern repeat of chaining 3 and then double crocheting 3 times into that block. And joining with the next stitch until I've reached that top, and then I'll show you how to continue to maintain this side, okay? I will see you there. Hi, so I've made my last block and I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into here. Okay, and then I'm going to turn, and just like the other time where we were shortening, instead of continuing to crochet up the side, or instead of making another block, I'm just going to slip stitch up the side here like we did before, okay, until I get into that space where I can make that chain. Okay, so that's where I am right now. I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to double crochet 3 times into each one of these little stair steps until I get to the very top. So I'm just going to be repeating the same pattern. The only difference is that when I'm on the side that I want to decrease, instead of adding that 6 chain, I'm just going to slip stitch up until I've reached the next block I want to go into, and that creates this kind of edge here. All right, so again, you chain 3, then you double crochet 3 times into the next block, and then you slip stitch, and you continue doing that until you reach the very top. All right, I'll meet you there. All right, guys, so I am at the top here, and all I have to do is join these. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to slip stitch into here like normal, the way I would normally do if I was joining. But I've decided that my blanket is or my square really, or rectangle, is as long as I want it. So those of you who want to know how to make a square, this is how you decrease the top as well. And those that are wanting to make a rectangle, all you have to do is just keep doing this until it reaches the length or height, because we've got our width here, until it reaches the height that you prefer. You can always continue to make this longer and longer if that's what you want, but I've decided that this is as long as I want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn, and just like I did for the width, I'm going to also decrease the length. So I'm going to go into this side, and I'm going to slip stitch up until I get to that row where I can continue to make squares until I fill all of this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my stitch marker, and I'm going to put it into this stitch down here, just so I remember that this is where I want to end. And again, you don't have to use this. Typically you're going to be fine, but if you're working on a really big project, it might help just so that you don't lose track of where you are, okay? Because a smaller project like what I'm making right now, I can see all of it, you know, but if you're making a blanket that's much bigger than you are, it might be a little bit more confusing. So, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to work the same pattern by crocheting, by chaining 3, doing 3 double crochets into this stitch right here, and moving up the steps until I get to the very top step. And I'm going to continue decreasing as I go. All right, so now that you know how to decrease on both sides, and it's basically the same thing, and that is you get to the end and then you slip stitch up to the next one and you fill that in, on and on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the point where I have just 1 square left, and then I'll show you how to finish and bind off your ends and weave them in, okay? All right, see you then. Okay, I just want to make sure that you guys get enough practice in, and I've reached the top again. And again, how you continue to keep the decrease is by slip stitching up the side like this. Okay. And then continuing to do your pattern until you close this in. And I really will meet you back when I just have 1 more to do, okay? See you then. Hi there. So I am almost done. I just have 1 more square to go. So again, I'm going to make 3 chains. Now I'm going to double crochet into this one 3 times. And I'm going to slip stitch here. And now I have my rectangle. So what I can do at this point is either slip stitch all the way across here and then bind off there, or I can do a border row all the way around. And I was always taught that if I want to have a finished piece or a finished blanket, that it needs to have some sort of border. Now, this particular stitch doesn't really need a fancy border in order to make this look good, you know. It's not one of those stitches that's so elaborate that it might need some decorative stitches on it. Some people might prefer to add a border, but if you are the sort of person that does not want to add a border, then go ahead at this point, pull a big loop through like this, clip it, and then pull it tight, and then you'll weave in your ends the way that I've taught you in many other videos. But I'm just going to show you what to do if you would like to make a border. So I have slip stitched into this corner, okay, and I've pulled an extra loop through. In fact, let me go ahead and go back to where I had slip stitched. Okay, so I just slip stitched into this corner and I pulled an extra loop through. This extra loop is going to be my turning stitch. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here, and for every one of these squares I'm going to put, because some of them are going to be like this, right, and some of them are going to be those slip stitches, right? So for every one of these squares, I'm going to go underneath them and I'm going to make one single crochet. A single crochet makes a really good border stitch, as it just kind of neatens everything there. Now, if you don't want this to have an obvious hole there, that's fine. All you have to do is, and I think I'm going to do this too, is you go underneath it and then you put it into the side of that last stitch there, and then you make your single crochet. All right, so as you see, I'm going into the side of this stitch here, and then I'm pulling up a loop and making my single crochet there. The one thing to remember though is that you need to make 3 single crochets per block. Okay, so now we're on the next block and we'll make 3 single crochets again. Now we're in one that I want to make sure it doesn't create any holes or anything, so I'm going to make another single crochet row right here. Just putting 3 in this one. And I'm going to go around putting a single crochet all around, adding an extra stitch by chaining 1 every time I reach a corner, because remember, we need to at least give it a little bit of leeway on the corners so that it has that corner there too, because we're building the sides, but we also need to build a corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to do that all the way around here, and I'll meet you back when I've got my border done. I'll see you then. Alright, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like when you add a nice little border around. You just kind of clean up those edges here, and I just went around once. Okay, if you want to go around more than once, then I would suggest when you come to the corners, just add 2 chain stitches when you're doing the turn, just because it'll just get a little bit bigger, and you want to make sure your corner is well defined. But I just went around once just to kind of clean up those edges. When I came back and I made my last single crochet into this top right here, all I did was I slip stitched into the next crochet, the next single crochet on the next side, and then I just pulled it really, pulled it really big through here. And now I'm going to go get my scissors. I need to clip this off here. And I'm going to pull it tight. Now that creates a pretty tight knot there, but just because I want to make sure that this is nice and weaved in, I'm going to go ahead and use a tapestry needle here, or a yarn needle. Got a nice big eye there where I can just slip it through. I'm going to cut that because it frayed a little bit. All right, and I'm just going to go underneath these little loops here that I created with those single crochets, and I'm going to pull this through there first. Now if I were just making a dishcloth, I'd probably just finish here, but since this is going to be a blanket that will probably be washed lots and lots of times, and I want to make sure it stays exactly where it needs to be. Not that I don't wash my dish rags. I'm going to go ahead and also weave it in and out between these stitches here so that it can get pulled through there too. Then I'm going to go up underneath these double crochets right there, and I can actually do that with my hook by putting my hook underneath these little stitches here, pull that through, and now that is not going anywhere. Stretch the fabric a little bit, and that is weaved in really well. One rule of thumb to think about when you're weaving in ends and something that you really want to make sure it stays real well is to go 3 different directions until you snip it off. Right, I'm going to do the same thing with this one, and I'll go ahead and do it here on camera so you can just see me do it again. And the only reason why I do these weaving in the ends at the end is that when I was first taught how to crochet, I was not taught how to weave in the ends, and I didn't know what to do with these little strings that were here, you know. And it's just in almost every tutorial I see on YouTube, and you know, and all of those other places. I see people talking about, okay, and then you just have to bind off and weave in your ends, and it's like, but how do I do that? So I'm just adding this bit at the end, not to bore you guys, but just because if you are watching and you're like me and you didn't know how, and it's like, well, I just made my first blanket, but I don't know how to weave in the ends. Well, you're going to figure it out, because I'm going to tell you. I'm going to make sure that you have everything you need to finish every single one of your pieces of work. Okay, so I went across there, I went down here, and I'm going to go ahead and go back across over here, and that will get that nice and woven in. It's not going to go anywhere. And now I can just snip it off there, and then you can see that little piece right there. I'm going to hold it up a little bit. Okay, see? It's right there. When I pull this, just disappears behind those stitches, and it is not going anywhere. So now we have a corner to corner rectangle or square, and you have everything you need to know how to make a corner to corner blanket in a solid color or in a beautiful ombre color like my son requested from me, or if you would like to add stripes that'll go across diagonally, you can absolutely do that too. It's just such an easy thing to make. It's fast, and it was something that I really wanted to share with you, because even though it's considered more of an intermediate stitch, I know you guys can do it. All right, guys. Thank you for watching this video to the end. I love your feedback. I read every single comment, so if you want to go ahead and leave me a comment, let me know how I'm doing. That would be awesome. I do have a giveaway going on right now, so be sure to find that and enter it. And go ahead and like. I would love it if you'd like to subscribe. I'm still building my channel, but I have a whole lot of content coming every day, and I have a mystery box Monday unboxing every single Monday. I've got a knit crate coming, a Lion brand coming, I have a Hobie yarn coming, and probably more. So just know that. No, I love giveaways, so this is by no means my last giveaway. I'm going to continue to have giveaways, and just have a wonderful day. I will see you soon with another stitch.